As someone who lived in California for 15 years and visited Disneyland regularly, I always had a deep appreciation for Soarin'. Now, admittedly, I was a bit too young to remember all the parts of Soarin' over California, but I always admired the ride, and certain scenes really did stick with me, such as the iconic golf ball scene or the poppies. The whole land of Condor Flats at Disney's California Adventure has actually been one of my most favorited areas in really any theme park. I just really love the feel there. It's just very simple and I think honestly really well themed and kind of looked down upon maybe, or maybe just something that people don't nearly appreciate as much as I do, but it's always held like a very special place in my heart. The queue for Soarin' at California Adventure is a memorable one for me, and just that entire little area with like the airport hangar and the aircraft stuff, it's all just great to me. Now, when I visited Walt Disney World in 2019, I remembered enjoying the simplicity of the Soarin' Around the World queue, but of course I preferred the Disneyland queue. Yes, the Disney World one is kind of cool. It makes you feel like you're in an airport of sorts. Disneyland's queue, in my opinion, is much, much better. Now, when Soarin' Around the World debuted, I enjoyed it a good bit. And now, as I've gotten older, I have been able to understand why people don't enjoy it nearly as much as I did when I was a kid. And honestly, I still enjoy it. I think it's good, but it does have its problems. And the biggest, of course, is the poor quality of CGI in this film. A lot of the iconic landmarks around the world are reconstructed in a disgusting way with CGI that just feels very, very sloppy. Now, a part of the charm when it came to Soarin' over California was how a lot of the shots were using either very, very minimal CGI or no CGI at all. They did a lot of actual shots in real life. And then Soarin' Around the World was very, very heavily dependent on CGI and made stuff like the Taj Mahal look weird and like a PlayStation game cutscene, like a bad PlayStation game cutscene, like we're talking PS1, PS2 sort of deal. Or at least that was the whole joke online. Now, when I heard that Soarin' would get a new overlay for America's 250th celebration, I was very excited, and I understood why Disney would use something like this, or use something like Soarin' to play into the entire 250th celebration. Now, the ride did debut, and immediately I saw really mixed reviews. And today I'd just like to break down the ride and talk about what I think is good about it and what I think is a little messy about it. We'll see if this is honestly a worthy ride overlay or just kind of a cheap cash grab. Now let's start from the exterior. The ride here is largely the same. You have the new sign with a few more patriotic decorations, but largely the same to the original from Soarin' Around the World. Now, when you enter the line, the lighting package is different. It seems very different, and instead of clouds above you, you have eagles above us. To be honest, I don't actually appreciate this lighting package. It looks a little dull and bland compared to the bright blue of the prior lighting package in the prior queue. It feels very tacky and last minute sort of installation. I mean, yes, we do have the eagles above us, but I mean the lighting specifically, it's a very big, different, noticeable difference here. Now, as for the pre-show, this time around in Soarin' Across America, we have a brand new scene with present day and much older Captain Patrick telling us about the flight we are about to embark on. He then turns us over to the younger Patrick, where we get the iconic safety video that we all know and love. Now, as you get on the ride, the first scene actually has us just rise up to see a rocket launch. To me, this kind of looked like the Artemis launch that happened this year, but I could be very, very wrong. Now, unlike the previous Soarin' rides, we usually rise up and are immersed in the clouds and then we burst out of the clouds, but here we just kind of rise up and see this rocket launch at eye level, and then we follow it up into the clouds, and then we burst through the clouds and enter New York City. As I already mentioned, CGI was a big complaint from fans when they experienced Soarin' Around the World, and here in Soarin' Across America, the CGI seems to be the main complaint. I will say New York City to me looks so painfully obvious as a CGI reconstruction, while some of the other scenes here aren't nearly as bad, but New York City is probably the worst thing by far in this ride, and it really sucks since you kind of just start the ride with this. Yes, we have the cool rocket launch, and that's very fun. Entering New York City as scene 2 in the first grand scene and having it look like this is pretty disappointing. Maine seems like a real enough scene for the most part. I will say DC looks kind of sloppy, like an AI reconstruction. I'm not sure if they used AI, I highly doubt it, but it looked very generic and just lazily put together. The bayou seems pretty real. Missouri looks authentic. Mountain Rushmore to me looked good for the most part, but something felt a little off. That might just be me. The Great Plains and Arizona looked great, and Alaska looked good for the most part, but a little bit wonky, and we'll get into that in a little bit here. And Hawaii seemed bit off to me. Finally, we have Hollywood, and that looked pretty good to me. That looked pretty authentic, it looked pretty real, and of course, as we all know, we end the ride as we journey back to Epcot, just like how Soarin' Around the World had ended. Some of the scenes here feel very real and authentic. For the most part, the CGI blends in well enough. The major exceptions have to be NYC and DC feeling completely fake. I will say though, most scenes do have a sort of uncanny valley effect on me. A lot of the scenes here, at least half of them, feel like that to me. Something feels off, especially in both Hawaii and Alaska. I think this is a bigger problem in Alaska because I feel like the foreground is well constructed and everything, but the background in the mountains looks a little weirdly fake. Maybe it's just because of how the screen is curved and everything. This, of course, was a big complaint with the Eiffel Tower looking bizarre. I just feel like something felt a little off with the curves in the screen and in that background. Now, the ride seems like an overall improvement when compared to Soarin' Around the World. Even if I do have a few problems with the ride, I think it's great overall, or good overall. The scenery, to me, looks great. And honestly, I do wish some parts of America were highlighted here, different parts. Using old scenes from Soarin' over California would have been a really cool callback and worked honestly a little bit well here. I think a large challenge for this specific ride overlay is, what do you even include in an American themed overlay of Soarin'? I think a big part of what makes Soarin' so fun is we get to see very cool natural landscapes. In California, it was a decent mix between like towns and cities and natural landscapes, but I feel like the nature part really makes Soarin' feel alive and vibrant. A lot of Soarin' Around the World is nature, or at least just massive I guess monuments, so I guess it's a bigger mix there, but I just think that overall the nature parts really sell Soarin'. And with America, yes, we do have beautiful landscapes here, but a lot of America seems to be cities and very industrial looking. And even though we do have the beautiful landscapes, I feel like Disney didn't pick the best of the best. They picked some good stuff. Nothing here that I would necessarily take out, but I think that they should have included more beautiful natural landscapes here in America. In my opinion, I think that we should have seen our national parks here. I think if we added like 2 or 3 different national parks with a different looking variety, this ride would be much better and much more elevated. Now, I think also having Vegas be not included is a little bit surprising to me. I understand Vegas isn't really a place for kids, but I mean, out of all the big places, I think Vegas is a big place, especially on the West Coast and just in general in America. Everybody knows about Vegas. There's so many business conventions there, and we could honestly dress it up with like a nighttime spectacular overlay of the lights and have the sphere in there and all that fun stuff. I think Vegas would have been great for this ride, but sadly we don't have that. And a state like Colorado, I don't understand how we don't have anything from that state. I mean, that state looks pretty beautiful, the nature and everything, so I just think that Disney could have done more here with the landscapes. If you have any suggestions on the scenery, please comment down below what you would have liked to see. I know these are just like little nitpicks for me and just things that I'd like to add on to the ride, but I think it would have made a bigger difference and impact on the ride if we had more nature thrown in. I understand a lot of people complained about the transitions and they felt that they were very sloppy. I kind of understand the complaint, but I think that most of them worked well enough, and all of them I think work better than Soarin' Around the World. To me, honestly, this overlay looks mostly good. It impressed me a decent bit. I had heard some negative reception and just mixed things, and I was like, oh, how would this actually play out? And then I watched some ride-throughs and I thought, you know what, they did a good enough job. I don't think it's the best of the best, but I do think it's a little bit better than Soarin' Around the World. I think that this is a, just good enough overlay. However, I do think one of the detrimental things is that they did not go out and film this all themselves. I understand that the permits take a while. It is still sad to see that it's mostly CGI reconstruction. And I understand that this thing was announced in October 2025, and that's probably when they started planning this out and storyboarding and prepping for what scenes would be included. So there's that. I don't know that for sure, but to me, it kind of feels like they probably just announced this, was like, oh, we have plans for 250 years, and then threw together something. And that might be why we didn't get so many actual flying over shots, or maybe just budget constraints. I don't really know, but I could see this ride overlay staying as at least a seasonal thing for July, the whole month of July, for Independence Day every single year, which could be really cool and not just be, a throwaway one-time limited time ordeal. I don't think that they're going to do that. I think that if they ever do bring this thing back, I think they should honestly improve it a little bit from guest complaints and, just add new scenes in here. What did you guys think of this? Please let me know down below. And also, since today is Saturday, I will be putting out the next video on Wednesday. Back on July 8th as we continue our 250-year celebration by looking into America's first theme park. And with that being said, have a very good, happy 4th of July and Independence Day. Peace out. See you guys in the next.